Thank you everybody for coming tonight. My name is Don Morrill. I'm the Executive Director here of the New York Technology Council. I'd like to welcome you all to what is our final event of the 2010-2011 series. For those of you that have attended some of our earlier events this year, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you enjoy this final program before we take the rest of the summer off and then reconvene in September with a great event series as well. I'd like to give a quick thanks to our 2011 sponsors, our corporate level sponsors, Information Builders, Verizon, Google, TGP Associates, and EisnerAmper. I'd also like to give a special thanks to Pricewaterhouse for hosting us tonight. They've been gracious enough to host us several times throughout the past year. They've got a beautiful facility here, and we really appreciate their involvement in the council. I'd like to invite Kate Blueball up to say a quick few words.
Thanks, Don. As Don indicated, I guess we have had the pleasure of hosting this organization over the last year or so. Maybe you're used to seeing my partner, David Silverman, up here. He wasn't able to attend today. I was catching up with Don and with Eric a little bit about maybe an event we hosted here about a year ago, which would have included results of our money tree report. We use that as an information builder for people in the industry to help them understand where venture capital money is going. The second quarter results will be in the press, hitting the press on Wednesday of this week, and then the report to follow afterwards. So I'll make sure that Don and Eric are provided with that information. You can get the information on our PwC Money Tree website, or certainly through the National Venture Capital Association, but we'll make sure that the materials are provided otherwise. As Don indicated, I'm a partner with the firm. I'm also in the Emerging Company Services group, focused on technology companies, focused on early, emerging, and later stage companies. So I'm very interested in this event. I have been remiss in understanding the incubator kind of environment within New York, so I'll find this hopefully as informative as you do. Enjoy the rest of your program, and hope to meet you maybe all afterwards. Thanks.
Two other people I'd like to recognize real quick, and specifically in helping produce tonight's event. I don't know if Land Grant is here, but there's a gentleman named Land Grant based out of Brooklyn who helps put together kind of micro economies, micro incubators, and helps very small companies grow in Brooklyn, and he was instrumental in helping putting tonight's event together. David Hoffman from the New York Business Incubator Association is also in the room, and I'd like to thank him for helping put together tonight's event as well. So that said, I'd like to start the program tonight. Just to let you know, we've got 5 speakers tonight. Each speaker will give about a 10 or 15-minute discussion specifically on the details of their program, their organization, what's the difference between an incubator, between an accelerator, co-working space. These are the things that we're going to learn tonight. I do have some unfortunate news in that our first speaker, Bruce Niswander, has been called away to a family emergency. So in his place, we're going to have Micah Koch represent the NYU Varick Street Incubator. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Mike up to start the evening.
Welcome. My name is Micah Koch. For those of you who I don't know, it's nice to see some familiar faces, and I'm really happy to be here. It's clearly an official event. It has its own Twitter hashtag, which is a good thing, and I'd like to make this as inviting and as open as possible. So if at any point during the presentation you guys have questions, feel free to stop, and I hope that's okay, and we won't exceed the time limit. You know, before I dive into this, I just want to remark, as a New York City native and a recovering entrepreneur, what an incredible, amazing time it is to be alive in New York City and to be starting a business. And so just so I have a sense of who you guys are, because you know who I am, how many entrepreneurs are in the audience? Nice. How many investors in the audience? All right, those guys have money. I know who you are. How many service providers? Fantastic. And anyone else from a university? Great. Okay. So Don asked me to... Sorry?
How about incubator managers?
How about incubator managers? There you go. Okay. All right. We got the entire ecosystem. This is great. So Don asked me to say a couple of words on the difference between incubator, co-working space, and accelerator. And the truth is that there are shades of gray. So I could have done this chart in a number of ways, but I think that there are some key differences here that probably deserve to be called out. So as Eric said before, you know, starting a company is a very difficult thing. It's an arduous journey, and it really helps if you have expertise and if you have someone guiding you along. And so if in fact you're a first-time entrepreneur and you're willing to give up some percentage of your company, maybe 10% of your company, for a small amount of cash and get a really intense mentoring experience with a finale after a 3-month period and a pitch to a number of angels and investors, then an accelerator probably makes a lot of sense. And there are a number of great accelerators. You guys are going to hear from Charlie from Er Accelerator later. But there are a number of really amazing accelerator programs that are happening today. But generally, you should be prepared to give up about 10% of your company for roughly $25,000. You should be looking at, you know, if you don't have a serial entrepreneur, somebody who has not done this before, then the network that an accelerator can provide can really help to solve a lot of the issues that come up. So there's a lot of friction inherent in being an entrepreneur in terms of developing pricing models, in terms of the customer development process, and accelerators are really great for that. There are a number of services that an accelerator will offer that an incubator or a co-working space, depending on the individual co-working space, and there, again, shades of gray, that these different organizations are going to offer. And again, it's going to depend on where you go, but a lot of educational events, different meetup events, different, again, depending on kind of what your cluster is, you may in fact find that an accelerator or co-working space is going to bring someone in to talk about logistics or managing your supply chain or what have you. So that could happen in any of these kinds of things. But what we think at the Varick Street Incubator that is probably the most critical thing on this entire slide is access to your customers. So does anyone know who Steve Blank is? Yeah, so the customer development process, the 4 steps to the epiphany, I highly recommend taking a look at steveblank.com, that's B-L-A-N-K. And Steve really talks about the idea that there are no answers in the building, right? That you might think you have the best product in the world. And I see this all the time personally. Someone comes up to me and says, you know, I have this amazing product. If I only had $10 million, I'd be a millionaire and I'd change the world, right? Okay. But I think that entrepreneurship, for the most part, is kind of skewed in that most entrepreneurs probably spend about 80% of their time on product development and about 20% of their time on customer development. And so Steve Blank kind of argues that should be turned on its head. And so the idea is when you have something, or if you have a thought of something, go out and speak to 30 potential customers and then see what they say before you spend your time and your money and your energy building a widget that at the end of the day, no one really wants. I think one of the other key differentiators here is that most of the accelerators are going to be focused on internet technologies, whether that's social media, digital media, mobile, location-based services, very, very internet focused. And it's rare that you're going to find a food accelerator program or there's a fintech accelerator program, but you don't see a whole lot of it in some of the verticals where getting proof points takes a little bit longer. And so the customer acquisition time is going to be a focus of whether or not your business is going to be right for an accelerator, for a co-working space, or for an accelerator program. Lastly, if you have a technology that's come out of a university, again, more likely than not, they're not going to have accelerator programs because the equity position kind of complicates their balance sheet, and it's a whole lot more difficult for them or for a city to do. So these are some examples. Dogpatch Labs is here. Techstars is currently running their program. Startle and Dreamit are doing some really cool things for edutech, for educational technology companies here in the city. And NYC Seed Start, which is a program that Owen Davis from NYC Seed runs. is also running now, and that's focused on digital media. The beautiful thing about this program is that Owen's actually bringing customers to the table. So if you're a digital media company and you actually have FaceTime with decision makers, with real customers at ESPN or EMTV, that is like gold, right? Because if in fact you can prove your technology out and you can get one of those guys to say, yes, this solves a problem for me, or yes, this fulfills a need, and I will write you a check for it, then why would you raise capital? If you can build your business on revenue, why give up your company? There's no good reason to do so. So these guys actually have skin in the game, and they want to see that thing happen so that they can basically get a multiplier and cash out. There's a very interesting article by Hermione Way, I think, in Next Web Entrepreneur. Anyone who's interested, you can come up to me afterwards. There's some controversy around accelerators, right? Because her argument, and this is not necessarily mine, although I think that there's something to it, is that Y Combinator and the like have kind of productized entrepreneurship. And that instead of getting companies to solve really, really big problems, ultimately you're getting small technology companies to pivot and solve problems that are rewarded in the market by venture investors, but don't actually tackle anything really significant, because it's harder to do that in the accelerator framework. And that there's a lot of entrepreneurship which is now taking place around the world, which is starting to solve problems. So whereas in New York we might use our cell phone to find the nearest food truck, in Africa people are using their cell phones to find the nearest malaria clinic. These are some of the incubator spaces here in the city. You guys will hear from WeWork later. General Assembly, Sunshine Suites, Newark City is another one. Daria will come and speak about Hive 55. Acre we'll talk about, and then there's the Food Accelerator, also supported by the New York City Economic Development Corporation. Me Kitchen as Sue Kitchen, I think. So now I'm going to talk about Varick Street. This is an initiative at NYU-Poly, which has been seeded with some funding from the New York City Economic Development Corporation. We work very closely with the mayor's office. We have 16,500 square feet in Soho, which was provided to us at a discount by Trinity Real Estate, so we're incredibly grateful to our friends at Trinity. And at the end of the day, this is really about job creation. During the mayor's re-election campaign, as part of his 5-borough economic opportunity plan, he said, look, here we are with the financial crisis in 2008. New York City's is 35% dependent on Wall Street for our payroll, and that's probably not such a great thing. So we have 12 different sectors in New York, 12 different sectors in New York that employ more than 100,000 people. But clearly, when people think about New York, they think about Wall Street and finance. And so can you, in fact, build an entrepreneurial ecosystem here? And I think you've seen an explosion of this over the last 3 years, where instead of going to work for Goldman Sachs or Bank of America, you have really smart, talented people who actually want to build their own business. And that culture exists in California, and I think probably to a lesser extent in Boston. And things are starting to shift here, but it's certainly, we don't have the 40-year track record that the Valley has, right? So how do you actually build a cluster here and celebrate some of the success stories? And so that's ultimately what we sought out to do, is to try to link up this dense environment where you have a number of significant corporate players. And if in fact you can get into the corporate supply chain and you're a small startup company, that can really have a multiplier effect and at the end of the day create jobs, create wealth, and create products for export. And so NYU-Poly, I think to its credit, has kind of stepped up and said, we recognize that despite the fact that NYU and Columbia have some of the best tech transfer programs in the country, traditionally we've hit below our weight when it comes to the amount of university spin-outs and licensing that we do to actually create jobs here. So that's been our mission, is to work with faculty, students, and postdocs, and actually move some of our interns to full-time employees at the incubator. So what do we have? Well, I think that it really begins and it bears saying that people really define us. It's an incredible vibe that you get when you get into this space. It's defined by success, by really incredibly hardworking people who are willing to sleep on the couch to make their dreams come true, who would die if they did anything else. and that's what you will find in a successful incubator. We'll provide access to markets, capital, and customers. Again, I think that's probably the most critical thing. We'll provide talent in the form of computer engineering students or students from NYU Stern or Wagner or ITP or Courant. And we also provide free legal assistance, accounting, Instagram for hosting, things like that. And then for some of the startups who are more dependent on getting into the supply chain for incumbents or for working with government, we'll actually get them feedback from key policymakers within the city and within the state, and that's a big help. So to have the mayor here is a big thing. What we've done is to really kind of approach this in a way where we're trying to create a more efficient market. So we know that not every single person who comes through the incubator is going to be successful, but what we've tried to do is actually create a more efficient market by reducing some of the friction and getting them their proof points. This is actually the space, again, on Varick Street on the 12th floor. And we think that, look, New York City is a great place to live because it's diverse, and we think that an incubator should be diverse. So we actually do have a nice mix of people within the space, kind of dominated by IT and clean tech. And this is a really interesting quote from yesterday's New York Post. Fred Wilson came out and basically advocated for the development of an energy infotech cluster here. It's something that we're working on very closely with NYSERDA, with Con Edison, with the New York Academy of Sciences. And in fact, 90% of the funding last year, and again, this is from data from one of our tenant companies, CB Insights, is actually going to internet and mobile. And 90% of VC dollars going to internet and mobile, we think presents a real long-term challenge to New York's viability as a center for entrepreneurship. These are some of our tenants. If anyone knows Graham from Ultralight Startups, he's there. The guys from Enrelate, Pixable's probably been our most successful company. They've raised $6.1 million. They just closed their Series B. Peter Thiel's an investor in Best Vendor, which is a really neat company. And Think Eco is an Acre tenant company doing some really neat things with energy efficiency. If you say, how do you know if you've been successful? These companies have raised about $26 million since we've been open. That's in 2 years' time. And they've created about 350 jobs. We've returned about $2 million back to the city and to the state. These are the number of founders, part-time and interns, and full-time employees at the incubator. This is the $26 million, basically 7.5 Empire State Buildings if you stack that. We do a lot of seminars and outreach. If you guys are interested in any of those things, definitely contact me and let us know. It's a nice space. We provide that to our tenants, and we kind of crowdsource some of the outreach that actually happens there. It's a destination. New York is an international city, and so we do see a lot of international traffic, people coming to check out what's happening in the city. We get a lot of press, and this is going to happen with my Mac to PC thing, but some of the nice quotes around the journalists who've actually been and seen the space. And then lastly, this is our contact information with an inspirational quote for you to take back into the summer heat. Thank you.
Thanks, Micah. Up next, we're going to have Daria Siegel from Hive at 55.
Hi, everyone. I'm Daria Siegel. I'm from the Hive at 55. So we're actually a co-working space. We actually don't even call ourselves an incubator, but I think we can fall under the larger umbrella of incubators, and I'll explain that a little bit further. So we're located at 55 Broad Street in the financial district in Lower Manhattan, and we're operated by the Downtown Alliance, which is a nonprofit business improvement district focused on improving the area below Kemper Street. Similar to NYU-Poly, we also receive funding from the New York City Economic Development Corporation, and we were included in the mayor's initiative of Media NYC 2020. And so the Hive was really focused on technology and the media industry, but I will speak a little bit more closely that our doors are really open to anyone, and we haven't really been restrictive in that nature, but it tends to, by nature of the workspace, be focused on those industries. And similarly, we also have a landlord who's a sponsor of ours, Rudin Management. So what do we offer? So a little bit different than an incubator. All of our memberships are month to month with no commitment. So we're really trying to focus on the needs of the freelance and small business industry. We offer about 7 different membership plans, all based on people's need for space. So you can come in as little as 3 visits a month, and that's only $50. And that might be if you are working at home in your apartment, but you have a client meeting and you need a professional place to come and take them and have that meeting. And then we offer all the way up to 24/7 access for the entire month. And these are all per person. But we really try to cater it to a variety of people's needs. And everything is all included, and she'll tell you a little bit about our wonderful amenities here. But our amenities are really just basics to help you operate your business, but that's not really what people come to the Hive for. But we do offer conference rooms, printing, faxing, scanning, mail, all the sort of basics that you need. But really what the Hive is about is the people that are there. We have about 110 active members that work at the Hive. And they're in a variety of industries. While we did focus on media and technology, we have service providers, we have lawyers, we have accountants, graphic designers, writers, journalists. And what we find is by having that mix of industries that the buzz that is created in the room as a result is really beneficial to everyone's companies. So we've seen a lot of collaboration take place, members hiring one another, networking, learning new skills, bouncing ideas off of one another, and just being able to further their business through the networks that they're creating there. So here are just a few of our member companies that I have included. So like I said, there's a really wide variety of different people that work here. And what's sort of nice, because our membership is so flexible, any given day you can find different people there. And it's all shared open workspace. So you're sitting down one day next to an attorney and who you might need help incorporating your business, and the next day you're sitting down next to a marketing and PR expert. So there's infinite ways to network throughout the day through that. In addition to just the organic networking that takes place, we do offer a lot of programming. And those vary from just happy hours that are open to the community, to member lunches that take place once a month, to after-hours workshops and classes. So we've worked with a number of partners to develop a really strong programming, and we usually have about 2 to 3 events going on a week. And these are open to the public, so I would definitely encourage you, if you're not even looking for a workspace, to check out some of the classes that we offer. So we hosted a TEDx event for the first time the other week. That was a member-led event. We work with PACE on doing a lot of business planning classes. We host a ton of meetups. And we've recently launched a partnership with Skillshare so that when people who are hosting their own events need a workspace, they can use the Hive. And then lastly, we really try to empower our members to host their own classes and workshops. We consider them to be experts in their field, and they're a tremendous resource for the community. So we have, again, lawyers who are doing free workshops that you can learn how to incorporate your business, on how to use social media for your business, a large variety. So with that, you can check out our website, hive55.com, to learn more about those events and all of the membership opportunities that we have.
Next, I'd like to invite up Natalia Arguello from NYDesigns.
Hi everyone, my name is Natalia Arguello. I'm the director and one of the founders of NYDesigns. We are a business incubator for designers in New York. We serve the design industry. We're part of the City University of New York, one of the 7 incubators planned for the city. And we are the first one, so we kind of figured out how to start an incubator in 2003 when we started. We started planning in 2003, we started our services in 2004, and we have served around 3,000 designers since then. Usually when I say we serve designers, okay, people tell me, oh, so you serve fashion designers? So there are more designers besides fashion designers that we serve. We have product designers, set designers, architects, fabricators. We have fashion designers, a lot of graphic designers, and kind of integrated marketing firms that are interested in participating in our program. When we started NYDesigns, we thought that the majority of our clients were going to be product designers. And because one of our services is a prototype lab that we have, and I'm going to speak about our services in a minute. But it turned out that a lot of graphic designers started contacting us, and they wanted to be part of NYDesigns. We really didn't want to create a competitive environment in our incubator, so We limit the number of clients that come from in each of the segments of the industry. The services that we provide are studio space rental. We have a residency program where designers apply to be part of the program. They have to present a business plan and they have to convince us that they are going to grow in employees, in revenue, in capital, and in investment. So we have at the moment 13 companies that have their studios and NYDesigns as part of the program. And each of those companies have access to our conference rooms and our business services. We have a business counselor on site who meets with them and provides a strategy business counseling for all of them. We also provide the space so designers can network with other designers in the industry, but also with business people and maybe funders, possible funders. And this was an event that we have with Parsons School of Design in the middle of the economy meltdown. A lot of the design businesses really didn't know where to go and where to find advice. So we had this panel discussion on how to survive as a designer at that time. We also, our space, what we offer to our clients is this professional looking space that there is a transition when they come and become part of the program. When they work from there, and this is my experience, when you work as an entrepreneur from your kitchen table, and then one day your client tells you, can I go to your office and see what you're working on? And you want to die. You don't know what to do. So we provide this space that really changes the perception that our clients have of them. They are no longer a freelancer, a consultant, a student trying to have on the side jobs. No, they become companies. And they have access to our conference rooms, as I said, and they have access to event space. All our multimedia equipment is at their disposal. And all these companies present themselves as companies and no longer as freelancers or consultants. And this another conference room is our premium conference room. It has the view of the city, even though you cannot see it like this. And I didn't notice that it looks different here than there. You can see a lot. Well, one of our services is a prototype lab that we have on site, and we serve fabricators and product designers, some architects that have to produce a limited amount of products, or that have to build products or prototypes or models before they go into production. And this is a business unit within NYDesigns that has been growing in the past year tremendously. We created this membership-based program for any designer that wants to come and use our equipment. We make it available to them. And also we take jobs from bigger companies like the Discovery Channel, Victoria's Secret, and other clients, so we can fund the whole operation. So we get these, very big projects from companies, and then with the revenue that we get from those projects, we can fund the program, the space rental program here at the prototype lab. So these are some of the tools that we have in the workshop. Tools to work with metal and wood, and we also have a part of the prototype lab. We have laser cutters and 3D printers. So as you can see here, this is the laser cutter. That is the laser cutter in action. And then what designers do is they usually cut pieces of their products and then put them together. We are providing the space for them to do it, and also the access to equipment that they wouldn't have access to if they were on their own. This is the 3D printer. We did this job for Alibank. This is how our 3D printer is like a sculpture. So it adds or subtracts material from a block, and then you have the final piece there. So our prototype lab that is called Hive, and we operated with a partner. We have, the reason why it's so important to us at this point is that without the bigger companies that we serve, we couldn't be serving the smaller companies. So these are just samples of the work we have done for Victoria's Secret, for their annual fashion show. We designed a lot of their wings. We have clients like Yahoo, and all this was done in our lab. Different equipment used here. This is a project for Discovery Channel. This is, in their corporate offices. We also work in a project for the Madame Tussauds, the New York Room. Katy Perry. We work with a fashion designer. So our prototype lab is not only for product designers and fashion designers. We are using this equipment also in other creative ways. We have fashion designers using our prototype lab. This is a designer that started a collection that is all laser cut. We got a lot of press for that. This is again the Love Bank. And so these are just some of the projects. This is a model that we actually a client rented the space to make a replica of the Empire State Building. So those are some examples of what we do at NYDesigns. We had to be creative in order to serve our community. We have funding from CUNY, and that is not enough. So we all go out and apply for grants. But this is a way that we found to be self-sustaining. Even though we're not only serving small firms, we're able to fund our operation with big clients. So if you have any questions, actually we're gonna have questions.
Yeah, we'll
later,
do Q&A at the end. Yep.
So thank you very much.
Next, we have Matt Shampine.
Yep.
Shampine from WeWork.
Hey everyone, I just want to give a quick talk about what we have going on over at WeWork Labs. For those who don't know, there is a co-working space around the city called WeWork that really is just like boutique office space. You pretty much pay month to month for 1 to 6 person offices, and it started with a building in Soho. They opened up one in Midtown about 6 months ago, I think, and then one in Meatpacking should be opening up this week, and then they have ones in San Francisco and LA in the works, and also one in Boston. So me and the owner of WeWork and my other friend Jesse were talking one day and came up with the idea of really trying to fill a need here in New York for early stage startups, like where you're at the stage where you have an idea and you have a little bit of money saved up, but you're not really quite sure if you're ready to make that jump. So we wanted to really focus on making it so money isn't a deterrent for really smart or creative people to start their own companies. So what we did is we pretty much renovated the 5th floor of this building and set it up in a communal kind of way so people can focus on really helping out each other. And the way we filled it up was by kind of leveraging this other project that I do called We Are NY Tech, where every day we profile a new person in the New York tech community. And so far we profiled about 170 people, and we have a wait list of about like 550 right now. So I have this huge database of everyone in New York that's just telling the story of how they quit their jobs and started their companies or their second or third companies. So we were able to push it out that way. We were able to get a really nice list of people that wanted to work in this space. So we really focused on this idea of working on the personality of the people that applied. Like, honestly, I still don't know what all of them are exactly doing in this space, and I think that's okay. Because I was actually looking at the folders that we keep of the companies in our space when they first started, and about half of them have already changed to a new product and a new name. And I think that's really good because they started working with the members of their space. So now we pretty much max it out. When you're at 3 people, you have to kind of move out, but we'll help you move into like a WeWork building around town, or We actually just had some members move out to San Francisco, and they're waiting for the building out there to open up. But the idea is to provide them everything that they need to do their business. So they get a dedicated desk. They get we do weekly food deliveries. We have internet, printers, fax, all that fun stuff. And for $250 a month, month to month, pretty much you get to build out your team right there, up to 3 people, then we'll help you find a new place to go. So the way we were able to do that is we worked with sponsors. So as you can see, we work with Boxy, Pepsi, JWT. Spencer Adler is an angel investor, and WilmerHale is a big law firm. So what we were looking for sponsors are people that were more like partners. So we try to give value to our startups that are in the space. So for instance, with JWT, they're a huge ad agency. So last week they had their chief creative director come to the space and meet with all the startups that wanted to talk to them, which was all of them, to figure out ways that they could work our startups companies into their brand pitches. And our startups know JWT. We have an associate from the company come and work out of the space about once every 2 weeks. So they get gradual feedback, but this was a way to actually pitch one of the creative directors. And I was just talking to them today, and they were just saying that they have like 3 or 4 of them that they want to pull in and give presentations to clients. So, I mean, it's a really cool way, and it's kind of what makes New York special, in that you have such close contact to all the big brands. So, like, one company in our space is Consumer, which really focuses on consumer packaged goods, which fits really nicely in both with Pepsi and with JWT, which has tons of brands under it. So they've already set up meetings with like L'Oreal and stuff like that he would have never gotten otherwise. And then like WilmerHale has been awesome. So right now we're doing a legal series. So every 2 weeks they have 2 or 3 partners come in, give a talk for about 40 minutes, and then just kind of hang out and do Q&A. So we actually open these up to the public. So I send out notices to my friend that runs Projector Space, people at Dogpatch Labs, pretty much just invite the whole public to come in if they want to get some free legal advice and hear with the different topics. So this past week we talked about seed funding. The week before we did formation. I think next week we're going to be doing IP. So we're just going to keep working through topics throughout the summer. And then what they do is actually have an associate come work in our space every 2 weeks and just have open office hours for anyone that wants to get free legal advice. So it's been really cool. And then what we do is try to offer up other types of resources. So we're not really like an incubator, we're not really like a co-working space, we kind of are like a little bit of both. So we have office hours where we invite VCs who are angel investors who want to meet the companies in the space that are into early stage, come in, kind of book about an hour and a half each, and then every 15 minutes just flip through the startups, get the pitches and give them feedback, but also set up meetings later. And it's not about like the startups in the space getting funding right now, it's about establishing those relationships with them. So when they first got started, they were able to meet all the angel investors, meet all the VCs, and then establish that relationship, send them emails to keep them in the loop, but we also have them come back. So it really ranges from, we're setting up VCs up in Boston and ones that come and visit from Silicon Valley, and they just come in for an hour and a half, meet 10 startups, and then pretty much just establish that relationship from the get-go. And then another thing that I did was really make it clear to the members of the space that if there's anyone that we profiled on We're NY Tech that they want to meet or anything like that, just let me know and I'll just set up an email intro. We'll have them come in, just kind of hang out with the group. We have a really open policy, so we have built this space with this idea of the desks are in the middle, but we have 6 conference rooms all around and a big break room. So we pretty much make it so anyone that wants to come hang out for the day can just come and chill and meet some new people. And then another thing that a lot of early stage startups don't have or don't know how to do is really talk to the press. So we were really trying to make it a little bit easier for them to get to know them and like set up that relationship. So we have reporters from like Beta B, we gave them like key cards to come into the building, just kind of hang out, like the Next Web. Business Insider comes by once in a while, and really just try to make it so they can set up like friendships with these reporters, get feedback of what kind of stuff they should be feeding them and when is the appropriate time. But I think it's all about just establishing that relationship when you're just getting started, as opposed to just emailing them when you need them. And let's see here. To us, what really defines success is kind of when the startup outgrows us, right? So our goal is to help them outgrow our space as quickly as possible. We opened up in April. We have pretty quick turnaround of people that are moving out. So we had one startup just getting the new class of Techstars, another one got a lead for AngelPad. We had 3 raised funding so far, and we have like 3 or 4 startups right now that are in the process of raising funding or almost there. So that's kind of how we're like really defining success. I think one of the coolest stories that really happened so far was this startup called Turf. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's pretty much like a mobile game that's where you take Monopoly and Foursquare and mix them together in like an 8-bit kind of way. He came into the space with this concept that he was going to like design it all out. He was a designer, and he wanted to do a Kickstarter program to raise money to hire a programmer to build it. So he's trying to raise 15 grand to do that. I sat him next to a rep from Pepsi actually works in the space. So I actually sat her next to him, and they worked out a deal after he launched his Kickstarter campaign for Pepsi to sponsor a large part of it for to be like the first thing that comes up and when you go to the game, like the Pepsi logo, I think in Brooklyn. So after that happened, I got an email from RRE. My company just redesigned their website, so they knew that we were running WeWork Labs. So after they saw that I tweeted about his Kickstarter campaign, they immediately contacted me, and I forwarded them on to him. And I think about a month later, he raised a really substantial round and just moved out and hired, I think, his 2nd or 3rd person. So all that happened just because I sat him next to the right person in that space. So I think that's like really shows why it pays to kind of work in a space like this as opposed to trying to save money and do it from home. And I think I'm just going to end with what our future plans are. So here in New York, our space has 47 people, but we have a pretty large wait list right now. I think it's like 150, but we get like about 2 submissions a day. So it's just continually building. So we're trying to figure out a way to really take advantage of what's going on. So we're actually going to be moving down to the retail level, the ground floor, which will be able to hold about 100 people. And we're going to be building out the basement area too, and we're going to kind of make it more interactive, but also give us a big place to hold events. And we also have a building, like I said, in San Francisco that's opening up. So we are going to be opening up a WeWork Labs out there and making it so if anyone needs to kind of go back and forth, they can do that. If they have to go out to like San Francisco to raise money or anything, they'll always have a desk and a place that they can kind of go to when they are in either city.
Thanks, man. That's a really great story. Hopefully nobody will have to go out to San Francisco to raise money. They can get whatever they need here in New York. Is Charles Kemper here by any chance? He is. There he is. Great. So our last speaker tonight is Charles Kemper from Er Accelerator. After he speaks, I'm going to ask all the panelists to come back up, and we'll do about 15 or 20 minutes of Q&A.
Hi, I'm Charlie Kemper. I'm one of the founders of Er Accelerator. Er Accelerator was an idea that we came together, myself and 2 partners, about a year ago, and launched our inaugural program about a month and a half ago. Before I jump into what ER is, I wanted to touch on the description or the definition of ER, of an accelerator versus an incubator versus a co-working space. And to me, it's actually a fairly simple differentiation. I view incubators as something like Idea Lab, what Bill Gross created, something that pretty much owns an idea and then helps build it in its entirety. So owns it from a concept, but also owns it from an economic perspective. I view accelerators as a platform where we help other people's ideas as small equity investors, as micro VCs, in co-working spaces as primarily a fee-for-service environment. With that, a little bit of the history. Entrepreneurs Roundtable has been around for 4 years. We've held 40 plus events in New York City. Basically, we are an organization that's very similar to New York Tech Meetup. However, the companies that come and present at Entrepreneurs Roundtable tend to be much, much earlier stage in nature. They tend to be very young engineers who don't have a fully baked idea and are probably in an early alpha or beta product. At these events, we have 1 VC speaker and 5 companies present to this VC speaker, and in front of an entire audience of 350, 300 people, the VC gives feedback to those companies. A lot of that feedback can also come from folks in the audience participating. We've had over 1,000 startups apply to pitch at these events and have a mailing list of 5,000 and growing. This event still goes on. Our next one's coming up in a couple of weeks with our VC speaker. I think it was just announced today. Our VC speaker is Philip Elliott from Penny Black, a newly formed micro-angel fund. We basically saw from this roundtable event that a lot of the companies that were presenting first with us were actually getting funded. Something like 50 or more % of the companies that pitched to us in the course of the past 4 years got some form of funding, be it angel or VC funding, and figured that if they had a platform to accelerate, not just a 2-hour event, they might actually raise funding more quickly and actually might be better longer-term viable business models. So we created Entrepreneurs Roundtable Accelerator. We're basically an early-stage investment firm that funds 10 startups with $25,000 apiece for an 8% equity stake of common stock. In our inaugural program, about half the companies incorporated with us, and the other half had been around and had already been incorporated. Our idea is to align ourselves 100% with founders. By owning common stock, we basically own the same security they do, and when those companies go out and raise funding from angels or VCs, we're 100% aligned with them in terms of valuation and strategy and long-term goals. Most importantly, we offer them free collaborative space in Times Square, hands-on daily advice from myself and my 2 partners. We also have 10 operating partners who are successful serial quasi-retired CEOs who spend about a day a week with each company, and one-on-one support from 200 plus industry mentors. That 200 plus is pretty unique. And getting feedback from a lot of entrepreneurs who have been through various different programs. We have our fair share of high-profile mentors, including Fred Wilson and Esther Dyson, but we also have a lot of mid-level and young mentors whose names most of you in this room may or may not recognize. And those folks can be as important as the Fred Wilson and Esther Dysons of the world, because they can actually make things happen within large corporations, and they can actually address some of the day-to-day issues that these young startups are dealing with. We also partnered with a bunch of sponsors to provide free legal, accounting, and other professional services. So far, we hold a weekly speaker series where we bring some high-profile executives and serial entrepreneurs to come in and speak. We've had Richard Jalachandra, the former CEO of Technorati, come in and give a talk about lessons learned about a CEO. We've had John Vincent, who sold his company to I Wonder Limelight Networks last year. Let's see, who else? Peter Stern, who's the CEO of Bitly and helped build Daytech. Louis Gersh, who's a VC at Metamorphic, and a bunch of others. In addition, we have a virtual CFO firm that holds weekly office hours. One of the challenges a lot of these small businesses have is putting together financials. A lot of them come out of a product background, and so having someone help them understand what a model is, what a P&L is, and how that works, and how that translates into a long-term business can be pretty helpful. We also have office hours from a PR firm, and we have a group of resident technologists. We have 3 resident technologists who spend a day with us a week, who are specialists in different areas and can help the companies out, as well as a staff designer who has agreed to spend the summer with us and has helped out pretty much all the companies on logo and other design issues. I'll go over this pretty quickly, but I've been a VC for 10 years, and this environment that we're in today is pretty different than it ever has been. It's a lot easier to start a company and get results much more quickly than it ever used to be. This has been talked about to death, but basically we believe that having an accelerator around can help folks who already have a product and who are already generating results crystallize that into a better story and therefore garner a better valuation down the road. Several of our companies, when they joined, had early revenues. About 3/4 of them had a product that was in market with users, and that was even before they incorporated a business. And all of that is because, you know, starting a business today can cost very little, and all it takes is a couple lines of code, and figuring out how to monetize it can be the more challenging part of the business. I came across these stats the other day, and I thought they were kind of funny. Every day, 2,700 new companies are formed in the U.S. Every day, 2,200 businesses fail. So basically, the probability of a new business surviving the first 3 years is just 10%. That's a really, really, really depressing figure. And if we as Er Accelerator and my fellow panelist colleagues can do anything about it, if we can increase that number to 20%, 30%, that'll make a world of difference to our country, to New York City, and to every entrepreneur that goes through any program. A lot of these services that we provide our companies are thanks to these fantastic sponsors we have. Gunderson Duttner is the #1 technology-focused VC law firm in the country. Windows, Azure, and Microsoft BizSpark, all of our companies get 3 years of free hosting on Windows Azure. We also get a year worth of hosting on Amazon Cloud for all of our businesses. And most uniquely, American Airlines approached us, and each of our companies get 10 free round-trip tickets anywhere in the domestic U.S. That's a pretty interesting perk, mainly because although funding is great in New York, we'll be hosting a demo day for this program in mid-September. We're also hosting a demo day in mid-October out on the West Coast. Hopefully the companies will get the money there and stay here. We are 100% New York City born. This is our lobby. We had a great artist come through and paint the Statue of Liberty on our walls, as well as paint a skyline in New York. The landlord's coming by tomorrow for the first time, so we'll see what the reaction is. I don't think that was in the lease. But everything we do is really centered around a fun New York vibe. We're in Times Square. We overlook all the billboards, which can be a little bit distracting. So that's enough about Er Accelerator. I think the most interesting part about our program is the companies. We have 10 companies in our inaugural class. Alphabetically, the first is BuzzTable. It's a waitlist management tool for restaurants, coupled with loyalty rewards. Sensi is a search engine for local services. Where to find the cheapest manicure or pedicure. LetGive is a pretty neat platform that enables any application to fundraise for nonprofits, primarily around micro donations. Most charities go after big whales, but as we've seen in politics and other forms, fundraising $1 at a time or 10 cents at a time can actually add up to big dollars. Nabfly is a mobile tagging platform for ad campaigns. Numberfire is an analytics platform for any sports fans. They play in the $7 billion fantasy football market and have beaten ESPN and Yahoo 7 out of 10 times in their forecasts. Parking Panda is basically Airbnb for parking. Pricing Engine is an SMB-focused analytics tool for improving ROI on AdWord and display campaigns. Something that most SMBs don't have the time to do is focus on ROI. Public Stuff is a really neat little business. They basically provide a SaaS platform that allows any small town in the country or in the world to provide a 311 program. We're all fortunate here in New York to have 311. It costs a fortune to develop. It's way out of the price of most small municipalities, but with Public Stuff for just a couple $1,000s a month, Small Town USA can provide 311-like services. SiteSimon is a content discovery and recommendation engine for websites and users. And Web Thrift Store is a white label eBay solution for charities, where people can sell their excess stuff online, and the proceeds of those sales go to charity. Those are the inaugural class. Those are the inaugural companies from the first class. These are my two partners and myself. The three of us partnered together to do this, mainly because we figured that not a single person could really help any of the companies on at once. So my background is primarily in venture capital from the past 10 years, both doing early stage and expansion stage funding. John Axelrod is a serial entrepreneur and is now on his third business. The last two he sold successfully. And Murat, also an entrepreneur with a very deep technical background. And that's all I got. Thank you.
So now I'd like to invite all our panelists to come up and sit in the center stage, and we'll take some questions from the audience. I'm going to have some roving mics going around, so if you'd like to use the microphone, please.
Okay. Go ahead. Anybody have any questions?
How far along in your product do you generally have to be, and what are like the requirements for entering your program?
Er Accelerator?
Yeah, well, for general, is there like a general minimum that would generally apply for where a person should consider getting involved with an incubator, accelerator, or co?
I think it probably depends on the program. Specifically with Entrepreneurship Accelerator, two of the companies did not have a product but had a framework of a product, and 3/4 of the companies had a fully working product. Ultimately, we selected our companies based on team and capability of team. So all of our companies are predominantly staffed by engineers, and there are folks who could build their own products. And so we also look for businesses that within a 3-month time frame could actually make progress either in product and or in business model acceleration.
So if you're at the stage where you have the product and you're going to market, is that a good time to get in, or a bad time?
That's a perfect fit. Several of our companies fit in that category.
Some questions? Yeah.
Thanks. Mike, could you walk me through, I saw on your slide that Pixable added 20 people. Do they stay in your incubator, or tell me what happens when they just all of a sudden go from 1 or 2 people to 20, 30, 40?
So there's really 2 triggers for us for when it's time to leave, for when we get the crowbar out. And that is, A, you've closed an A round, or B, you've reached 15 people. So as they were approaching that 15 people, you went to Trinity Real Estate and we said, here we have a great young company. We'd like to keep them in your footprint in downtown Manhattan. Trinity owns like 5 million square feet of real estate down there. So they found them some below market space right across the street at 137 Varick that they signed a 3-year lease for. So that's part of the value add is ultimately finding step out space. So rather than going from the equivalent of roughly $10 a square foot to market rate space, which would be $25, $30 a square foot, we're trying to assist them and keep them in the neighborhood so that they can actually pay, so they can ramp up, whether it's a 3-year lease or a 5-year lease, but so that they don't have to make that huge jump right when they get out. Because that's one of the biggest hurdles of being in New York City is that your rent will just gobble up your burn rate, and it's such a significant percentage of your overhead that if you can actually provide step out space, it'll keep a company in New York.
And just to follow, Mike, and do the legal services and accounting services, do they all provide that? So obviously landlords want to know if they have revenue or there's leases to be negotiated. Does that all become part of your incubator?
So once they're out, they're not getting the pro bono stuff, right? So Pixable, for example, closed, I think their A round was led by Highland Capital. They closed like a $2.3 million round. So at that point in time, they could pay. And that's why the lawyers are doing all this stuff, right? That's why all the service providers are in. It's all about enlightened self-interest, right? I've said this before. It's enlightened self-interest. That's why these sponsors, the guy who's flying AA 10 times a year. If the company hits it big, it's going to be flying 300 times a year. So that's the hope, is that they're actually, they'll ramp up to be full paying customers.
Thank you.
What if you're not interested in raising any kind of equity capital, at least at the beginning of the business? So you're bootstrapped and you want to stay bootstrapped. Is that classically the co-working space option, or I would think the accelerator piece would kind of flow away? But I've heard incubators do some of that, or co-working space.
I would definitely say co-working is certainly right for you. Speaking to some of the other questions, there are no requirements to come and work in a co-working space, or at least at the Hive. You could come with your stuff, your computer tomorrow, and start working. And we also don't kick anyone out of the co-working. You're welcome to stay there as long as you would like. So it offers more flexibility. So it's certainly an option, but I don't know if you want to speak to it.
Yeah, so I mean, we have kind of both options in our building. So if you want to be a consulting business and kind of build up like that, then yeah, getting just a regular office for yourself is probably something more that you want, where you can have like lock and key and your own kind of privacy. But if you want to just build, an actual like business for yourself and just slowly ramp it up by hiring people, I mean, that's totally acceptable too. Like going the route of raising funding isn't necessarily what you have to do. We have a lot of friends, like the guys that run like the startup Harvest and Carbon Made, like they just built out their product and hired when they needed it, and didn't go out and raise a bunch of money to hire more people. So it's pretty much what your preference is.
Go ahead. Yeah, this is directed, I guess, to the accelerator side. As part of your value-added services, do you create entree to strategic investors, VCs, and other angels?
Yeah, so of the 200...
repeat that question again? We couldn't hear it in the sentence.
Question was, do accelerators make introductions to strategic angels and strategic corporations who may or may not be interested in investing? Absolutely. So myself and my two partners spend all of our time helping the companies do business development. And that comes either through the 200 plus mentors that we have, who mentors that are up and down the ranks of places like NBC, PUNKCAST, or other tech and media businesses. And then even more specifically, when a specific company talks to us at one of our weekly one-on-ones, asking us to get in touch of so-and-so at such company, we tap not only our respective networks, but our 10 operating partner networks, and make sure that introduction happens. Throughout the program as well, we have, especially in the latter portion of the program, we have VCs and angels coming through and meeting with the companies leading up to demo day. I 5 years ago co-founded something called NYCVC, which is one of the leading associations of young VCs in New York, representing roughly 75 firms and 160 members. So those folks, NYCVC is currently planning an event where it's visiting Er Accelerator, as well as Techstars, and as well as Dream It, and any other folks up here who want to do that. Basically, we go to our list and have invite all of our members to come to the incubators and meet the companies early on.
Right here, I had two questions, one for Charlie and one for Natalia. What is the application process, and how do you like applications to be submitted to you?
So our application process was lengthy. It was a Google web-based form. About 50% of the companies who applied also submitted a video. But generally, to sum up what we were really looking for is everyone's LinkedIn bio in detail. We wanted to understand that the teams were comprised of engineers and people who could build product and who were trying to build a product that they actually knew something about, as opposed to an engineer going into footwear, for instance. And we also looked for credibility of the business idea. We understand that businesses change over time, and so we wanted to see people who had backgrounds that were flexible and could roll with the punches, so to speak.
You speak in the past tense. Are you still open for new applications?
So our next program will be this coming winter.
Okay.
Starting either January or February.
And so we'll find about the deadlines up on your website, or?
Absolutely. So our website is updated. The specific deadlines will be posted on there probably come September. and will also be announced through our Entrepreneurs Roundtable list, which you can sign up for.
Okay, thank you. For Natalia, a question. I really like the idea of a fabrication lab. My question is, if you yourself are not a designer or so forth, but you, let's say, would like to have access to a designer to build a prototype for you, are you able to help with that and organize maybe one of your members to help design something?
Yes,
and
I think
fabricate it?
Yes, well, that is, I think the best part of my job. I really am I connect people. So there are a lot of people who call New York Designs and what they need is a designer. They really don't want to be part of the program. So we connect those clients to our designers. In terms of fabrication services, New York Designs provides those services to small firms. And we can also connect you with other fabricators or product designers depending on your needs.
Very good, thank you.
Micah and Matt, of all the companies or the startups that you see, how many of them are in the B2B space?
Most, I mean, the vast majority. Yeah, I would say 75, maybe 80%. We don't see a whole lot of, I mean, there's a handful of consumer web companies because there's so much of that in the city. But most of our companies are actually in the enterprise or B2B space.
I think our space is a little bit more diverse. I'm not quite sure why it is. The way it's kind of turned out now is after we had that initial class and we had the turnover, a lot of the people that have been coming in have been just straight referrals from other members that have been in the space. But I don't know, I think that the actual B2B, it's probably closer to like a quarter, maybe less. Like we don't actually have anyone working on anything out of files or anything like that in this like early stage. We have a lot of mobile stuff that's going on.
Over here, check.
This is mainly for Mike. I was wondering, so I've heard that basically most of the companies in the incubator seem to be straight tech related, but I'm wondering for something like a biotech company, or maybe biotech related, is there any way to take advantage of the fact that you're linked to NYU-Poly and potentially labs there or lab space? I know you guys probably don't have lab space, right lab. Have you guys thought about that, or is that something that might be an option in the future, something more biotech related?
It's actually tough to get lab space at the university. You know, the New York City Investment Fund has a big biotech push. Take a look at the Er Accelerator prize, which is a really great competition, and they've city, I think, has given a ton of money to the Alexandria Center for Biotech. There's also, this is what I was saying in the beginning, you know, what an exciting time it is to be an entrepreneur in New York City. There's a guy who's doing like a biotech lab in space in Brooklyn. I don't know if you come up to me afterwards, I'll make a referral, but he's got like a small lab space doing some really neat, now clearly it's going to get you to a certain point, right? But there's a lot of that. There's, you know, bug labs and alpha 1 labs, and there's just and you would think like in New York City that you'd have engineers doing actual hard physical science, but it's definitely happening. And actually the New York City Investment Fund also has this Tech Connect initiative, which is really trying to foster the hard sciences here in the city, so biotech, clean tech, life sciences, and so yeah, that's a great resource as well. You know, when it comes to faculty members, again, if there were a specific project, I might be able to help you out, and if I can, I will.
Hello, good evening. Raphael from Trenton's Lab. What are some of the things that you feel lead entrepreneurs in your respective areas need help with the most?
I could start with that. I would actually say there's not one thing. It's a little bit of everything, and every entrepreneur is different. You know, we're all human, and these companies are made up of actual real people, and everybody has strengths and weaknesses. So I wouldn't say there's one common theme across our 10 companies that anyone particularly needs more than the next. They're all different. One thing that we found though is that is that they support each other. So the 10 companies that are actually have become mentors for each other and help fill in gaps, and they meet together and solve engineering problems together and solve business problems together, even though they don't, all they're doing is sharing office space. That doesn't answer your question too much.
One thing that I just had a discussion about this with somebody else that we really noticed is that an issue that people are running into is that everyone here in New York is becoming like such a cheerleader for everyone else that it's really hard to get like honest feedback. And it's even harder when you're stuck in like 3,000 square feet with the same people every day. So that's kind of the reason why we try to push these ideas of office hours, whether it's with a VC or an angel, or like we have someone from the EDC coming in this Friday, where you just kind of get honest feedback where it's like nothing personal, but also they're not going to be sitting right next to you tomorrow. Right? I mean, I think that really is some sort of issue where a lot of people are kind of cheering on ideas that aren't really the greatest, but you don't want to be mean, you want to be supportive and stuff like that.
How you doing? Brendan from KMID. This is my team, Nathan and Zaki. I wanted to ask Micah, we had applied for the Dumbo, the new location. Noticed that it was recently sponsored by the mayor. We immediately applied. I wanted to know a little bit about what the process is and how we can move forward and what your selection process is.
I think that there is contact info for Dumbo on that site that I gave you for Contact Me. There should be a link for you to submit application. I think that it was a soft launch during Internet Week, and I believe that it should be opening this fall or the winter. So if you find me afterwards, I'll take your info down. But I don't think it's happening in the near future. Probably it's gonna, it'll be 3 to 6 months, I think, before the space physically opens.
First one. Hello? Is it on? Alright, cool. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for all coming up, and I certainly learned a lot from each of you, all different things that you're different, whether you're accelerator or incubator or your co-working space. What I'm really interested in to hear from all of you is, what did you come away from the other panelists? What is it, something they said about their space that made you kind of think about what you offer, and maybe something that you're going to pivot in the way that you kind of run your space? What is something that you came away with today from listening to the other panelists?
I'll start. I mean, so look, on the positive side, this is tough, and I think it's Charlie's point, right? If you can make a significant impact that you can actually measure, that improves the outcome and survivability of young companies, that's a plus. And then you feel good about the work that you're doing. That's personally what I love about my job, is that you can actually see the difference in young companies and young entrepreneurs. I love this idea of the free airfare. I know the airline industry. I like that. And again, I do think, look, we're in a really interesting time where there's a lot of activity in this space, like the whole ecosystem here. I mean, the amount of early stage capital that was chasing good ideas 3 years ago, 5 years, 10 years ago, significantly different from what it is today. And I think that there's a lot of people out there who are way smarter than I am, who are saying, like, look, the valuations are a little bit out of whack. And so again, I think we're going into a really interesting phase. And I think the question is, can you build really solid businesses? And it comes down to the individual entrepreneur, like, are they filling a need or solving a problem? And they have something that people are willing to pay for, right? I mean, a lot of this is not rocket science. Have you created something of value that someone wants to pay you for? And if the answer is yes, and you can get to scale, and it's scalable, then you probably have something that someone's going to want a piece of. And then the question is, can you find the right, like the smart money who can help you grow your business, as opposed to, the 30-year-old hedge fund guy who's willing to cut you a check for $50K.
I would say something else. this New York City is a weird place because everyone lives in a really small shoebox-sized apartment, all on top of one another, and we don't really have any breathing room. There's really no other space in the world, or in the Western world, that's like that. And as a result, the need for these kinds of diverse services, from co-working to incubation to acceleration, is infinite. I think that that there's room for 2 to 3 times as many of us here in New York as there currently are. You know, even San Francisco probably has several more of our types of organizations than we currently count on in New York. Yet our city is exponentially larger. So I think there's a lot of ways to slice it, and a lot of ways to look at it. And ultimately, I think we all offer a slightly different service for a slightly different end user. And I think specifically, based on the quality applications we got for our inaugural class, I can definitively say there's room for others. Whether I want that or not is a separate thing. But I can imagine only that a co-working space is you know, I see the demand from our companies who are already starting to look around saying, hey, where are we going to go once we move out of here? And I hear from WeWork and I hear from Hive that there's a wait list. So there's need for everything that everyone up here is providing, and I don't know. I don't think we're anywhere close to any sort of saturation point.
I want to add that we are focused in the design industry, and that is great because we can provide very specialized advice for design entrepreneurs. But the idea of having a mix of businesses is really something that I have been thinking about a lot, and trying to, you know, preserve that specialized business advice or environment, and mixing it up a little bit, like bringing other clients, maybe having a co-working space that's not for designers, so we can nurture our community, the community that we already have. It's something that I have been thinking about, but listening to you guys talking about all these different businesses that help each other and collaborate with each other, it's something that that made me think that maybe that is the next step for us.
I mean, I think what we're really trying to do is kind of keep an open mind right now. I mean, when we open up this space, like me and my co-founder Jesse really had no idea about what we were really trying to do or how to do it. So when people approach us with opportunities, like someone from KPMG came in, like, can we give a presentation to your members and stuff like that? I mean, just kind of be open to what would be best for them. But we try to keep it almost like a co-op. Like, we put out these ideas to our members and just get quick feedback, and then either put on the programs for them. If they're too often, then we won't have as many. But really, we're trying to build a community between them. And I think that the cool part about our space is that everybody has like a different type of skill set. Whether they're iOS programmers, web designers, UX people. Once you leave the space, you're gonna have like 46 like brand new friends that you've worked with like day in, day out for usually like 2 to 3 months. Now that you can kind of ask for favors, like ask them to take a look at something, but also they typically are hanging out with people with the same skill set. So if you need a designer, the best person to ask is probably a designer who may have other friends that they can refer you. So suddenly you're going to be leaving with like a brand new network of people.
And exactly, and I wanted to tell you, I think that was the common theme amongst all of us, and you might not have recognized when we opened the space, but the members of all of our spaces are really benefiting from the other members. And it's one of the things I've been thinking a lot within the co-working realm is how can all these co-working spaces and all of their members independently finally get together and share that knowledge all together. And maybe it's not just co-working, but it's the incubators and the accelerators too, because there's so much talent and skill set amongst these people, and they're so independent right now. So that's something I'm continuing to think about.
Hi, this was really fascinating. Thanks to all of you for telling these stories. In different ways, you're all saying that the value added in this form of working is the network node that you form. Really, you provide a cluster, a tangle maybe of resources, of people and things that adds up to more than the sum of its parts ultimately. And that has to do with what resources you as individuals, what contacts you as individuals brought in, as well the individual skill sets of the people who are housed in your programs. So my question to you is, Given that so much of this has to do with what New York City can agglomerate, do these incubators and accelerators, I'm sorry, Natalia, the question doesn't so much apply to you. Do they have to be in Manhattan? I mean, can they be in the outer boroughs? Maybe the question I would love an answer to is, what strategic considerations did you make when you thought about where your sites should be?
I can speak to that a little bit. So, I mean, I work for a business improvement district, so we were really focused on the lower Manhattan community, and that's how we ended up there. But we initially thought most of our members would be coming from lower Manhattan, especially if we opened during the economic downturn. We assumed people are looking into new ways of working, doing freelance and consulting. Ended up not being the case at all. People are coming from throughout the 5 boroughs, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. There is huge demand for this, and I think I'm learning about more and more opening up in outer boroughs. A lot of small neighborhoods in Brooklyn, especially where there's a lot of creative graphic designers, writers. I know Greenpoint just opened up a new space. Park Slope has spaces, and a lot of them are very niche. So there are a lot of like writers' workspaces, but I think it's expanding. So you'll see that people will come from far for these spaces. So there's huge demand.
As an accelerator, I would say we actually have a bunch of ties internationally. We have programs in Entrepreneurs Roundtable programs in Japan and Turkey. 30% or so of our applicants were from all over the world outside of the US. However, I would say in terms of physically being situated not in Manhattan, for our kind of business model, that's a little tough. You know, we ultimately pay our bills with equity returns. I need those equity returns to be able to pay my rent. And the best way to get those returns is to make yourself very close to investors. Make it easy for investors to come by. And for better or for worse, most of the investors tend to be in dense geographic areas. Setting up an incubator or an accelerator in Montana would be tough to attract the quantity and quality of investors that we currently do.
Let's take one more question, then we'll wrap up.
For any of the speakers, what aren't you doing today that you would want to do tomorrow to become even more effective?
I mean, really what I try to do is listen to our members. So I don't have the answer for what we should do tomorrow, but some of our members are making a request. They need this, they need that, things we hadn't thought about. So me just trying to be as adaptable as possible, that I can't think of all of the needs, especially because we're serving so many different industries, to look to our members to figure that out as we go forward.
I guess what I'm saying in a different word, is this an evolving model for all of you, or are you at a point where it's exactly the way it's going to be in the future?
I mean, it's not for it's not for me personally. When we started this and we got some funding from the city and from NYSERDA, which is a state agency, we actually looked around the world and we looked at like best practices, and we took those that we thought were going to work here, and we customized it to the unique set of circumstances that we had. But we're 2 years in now, and I don't know that. I think the ground has shifted. It's not 2008 anymore. So I think we're constantly kind of evaluating what we need to do differently to serve our constituents, and our constituents the right constituents. But I guess with respect to your first point, and this might be a little bit controversial, I think that we're probably not making our case as effectively as we possibly can. So we got 100K from NYC EDC, which I'm incredibly grateful for, and if there's anyone here from EDC, you guys are the best. But think about the amount of tax credits that New York City gives to the film industry, to the television industry, for jobs that are not captive jobs, that make New York tend to look like the epicenter for Armageddon. Or I was watching Pelham 123 the other day, and I was like, really? Like, I know these are creating temporary jobs, but a lot of times, tax credits are used to make New York, they're just used to paint us in a pretty bad light. And it's a significant amount of money that we're using to create those jobs, versus a very, very small amount of funding to help build this entrepreneurial ecosystem, which create incredibly compelling world-class products and services, and potentially products and services for export, and jobs that actually stay here. So I think that Albany and Governor Cuomo, and I was like up there last month, but they need to be down here and they need to understand like what's happening in New York. And I don't think that our state senators or assemblymen, or even at a national level, I don't think that they really have a sense of what's happening at this place and time.
Just one quick thing. Like, so I guess your question was more like, is this like an evolving kind of process, right? We really are treating it that way. And I think the one thing that I wish we did better was engage the members of the space to kind of run themselves more or less. Like, our space is a little different than others. Like, we don't actually make any money from it. So all the money that we have extra, we just kind of dump back into the members, whether that's by hosting events and dinners, things like that. So I think that if we are going to expand it like we plan to and move out like to a larger area, invite more people and have to get more sponsors for it, we really have to engage them to kind of take responsibility for kind of hosting some of the events and things like that, because I think it's really what is going to make it like a kind of a co-op kind of community where people are relying on each other and not just on me and Jesse just kind of putting on events whenever we have time thing. So I think that's kind of the model that we're trying to go after, to try and make it more like this kind of residency area where people can say, we should have an event like this, and I'll take responsibility for planning it and getting the food and doing all the logistics, but them telling us what kind of stuff they're interested in and kind of curating it so it's not all at once.
So please join me in thanking our panelists one more time. You have to leave right away, but hopefully most of you can stay around and answer some more questions. If you would, please fill out your surveys and leave your name badges with my assistant on the way out. It would be greatly appreciated. And I look forward to seeing you all again in September.